Hey guys, welcome back to the Emerson 628 television restoration project. The cabinet is pretty well wrapped up, so let's turn our attention to the chassis. We took a quick look at it in an earlier installment and looked at some service info, but this is going to be our first detailed look at the chassis. Now, when I got this set, it went right from me picking it up from the seller and right into storage, and I've never taken a good look at it, so that's what we're going to do right now. It's a 10 BP4, the most common 10-inch CRT from the early black and white television era of the late 40s. This big cup over the end here is just to protect the CRT. It's a bit more generous than it really needs to be because the end's about here, so there's just some extra hollow space back there. Oh, we appear to be missing the cover for the high voltage cage. I think it's using the very common early type flyback used in early RCA and Admiral sets, for example. 6 BG6 output tube, 1 V3 high voltage rectifier. It's a 6W4, no, 6AX4 damper tube, but it was probably originally a 6W4. As we talked about earlier, the power source is a bit unusual in that it sort of has a floating ground, so all these electrolytic caps are isolated from the chassis, which is ground, but the negative on the caps does not go to ground. So 1, 2, 3, 4 at least of them. I plan to use adapter caps. The value of this set is in the cabinet. Of course, we want to get it working as well, but I don't see any great need to try to restuff the caps. I don't think this one is original anyways. We can always put cardboard covers over the new caps and hide them anyway. In addition to it being a TV, it's also an AM/FM radio, which we see down here as a variable cap. So they kind of cram the radio circuitry in here, and the TV is over here. The tuner. At first, I thought it might be a continuous tuner because it has this continuous scale here, but it's actually a more conventional type tuner. Let me see if I can grab a knob and show you the action when I change channels. This needle should just jump up. It's not, won't continually slide. It should jump between channels as I change them. Okay, it definitely needs some lubrication, but it does work. So yeah, as you see when I change channels here, chunk, chunk, chunk. Even so, it's pretty cool, I think. And I imagine once it's back in the cabinet with the pretty glass dial scale, it'll be a nice look. The chassis and CRT and all the tubes need a good cleaning, but I don't see a whole lot of corrosion, so that's a good thing. Let's tip this up on its side and take a look at the parts underneath. Now, I gotta say right away, one thing I don't like about this chassis that I noted as soon as I took it out of the cabinet is it's a little wonky. They went a little cheap on the gauge of the sheet metal here, so it flexes quite a bit, so we're going to need to be a little careful how we support this while we're working on it. And here we go underneath. So what I always want to know when I first look underneath the chassis is, has it been serviced? Has a restoration been attempted? Did they monkey with it, or is it ideally all original? I am leaning towards all original. First, when I saw these El Manco ceramic-looking caps, I thought these were replacements, but that's what the majority of them are, and these joints look pretty original. We've got the spaghetti sleeving over the ends of them, so I think those are originals. We also have some bumblebee type caps. I'm also seeing corrosion on some of these leads. So, like down in there, some green And the same on this power resistor. So I'm expecting the power resistors to be open. The paper caps are all going to be leaky and bad. But other than that, I don't see anything that has me concerned. It's a little messy. These early Emerson sets tend to be. I've poked around with a few others, one of which I sort of did a resurrection on years ago with the old apartment. I have several sets that have a similar type chassis. This is the only one that has the AM/FM radio and that vertical dial scale, but I've worked on or poked around with a couple others. A somewhat similar design. They built sets in the late 40s that had the fancy wood cabinet, a cheap wood cabinet, and a Bakelite cabinet. And they all derive from a similar chassis design, which would be this. And yeah, that's just how they built them. This does look a little odd, though. This kind of looks like it got smashed back. There should probably be... I would think this would be bent at a 90-degree angle here, and the screw came in from the bottom of the cabinet, because this just doesn't really make any sense to be in the position that it's in. It's not really doing anything. I bent that when I took the set out of the cabinet. Well, it's a possibility, that's for sure. That's the mode select switch. The inner, or rather the outer shaft being tuning. Dial strings are not broken. I want to be careful with them and not force anything. But yeah, as I turn this, that pointer is moving, so that'd be the AM/FM radio. We saw the channel clunker working on this side, so that's great. And here's a tuner, standard tuner, used in plenty of other sets. It's a pretty rock solid design. So what I think it's going to come down to with the work here is replace all those electrolytic caps. There's 4 or 5 multi-suction cans. And then replace the power resistors. There's another one here. We got the green corrosion. They're very likely open. And replace all those paper caps. We've got a mix of, some are paper cardboard tubes dipped in wax. We've got some bumblebees. We've got some of these Elmago ceramic-y types, and then a few of those types. So quite a variety, but they're all paper caps inside. They're all going to be very leaky and need to go. And we'll check resistors as we go. I started cleaning the CRT and I noticed it's very shiny in this area, which is a good indicator it's an aluminized pitcher tube, which I was not expecting. So I wanted to investigate further and see what actual numbers on the CRT. So I took the cover that was protecting the base and disconnected it. And it's General Electric, and it's worn off right where we'd see the key indicator. Is that a B or is that an F? I think it's a 10 FP4. But I really can't tell if that's an F or a B. But another confusing thing is that if it was a 10 FP4, you would absolutely not have this on here. But if somebody didn't know any better, could you have a 10 FP4 with an external ion trap magnet and have it still work? Yeah, if you rotated this such that it was not interfering with the operation of the CRT, yeah, but you certainly don't need it because it has a straight gun. It's an aluminized pitch tube. It doesn't need an ion trap magnet. So what do we have? Well, we'll know for sure when we get the set, and when we get to the point where we have a raster, because if I take this off and the raster disappears, we know it needs it, which means it's not an aluminized CRT, but I'm leaning towards it being an aluminized CRT. And they just position this in such a way that it was not affecting the electron beam flow. Took the magnet off and I cleaned it up a bit, and it does sure appear to have a straight gun, which again indicates 10 FP4. Now of course it's all academic if it is no good. So I got it on a tester now, and the emissions are slowly climbing. It was absolutely zero for a while. Now it is steadily climbing. Don't have any shorts. Both these lights are lit up like they should be. And the emissions are continuing to get better and better. So absolutely has some life left. Now I really hope it's 10 FP4, because that is the best 10-inch picture tube that you can get. Now, if you watched my earlier video on the Emerson 628, I talked about service info, or the lack thereof. Like Sam's Photo Effect never made a full folder for this. The Riders does have the info, but I was looking to get something a little bit better. So when I saw this come up for sale on eBay for 20 bucks, I jumped on it. It's the Wallace Telly for all Emerson models, covering 47 to 53. And the 628 is indeed in here on page 33. Now these can be a little confusing, because what they'll typically do is give you 1 or 2 pages dedicated to a specific model, then they will combine pages for similar models, like the alignment instructions for several sets might be combined into one. But what I definitely have is a nice, big, clear, easy to read schematic. And it says, for further information, see page 34. I just got this, I just barely looked at it, so I'm not sure what's on the next page. But I was glad to get a good, nice, clear schematic, if nothing else. Okay, we've got the dial stringing diagrams, lovely. And here's that simplified voltage chart that was also in Riders. And some details about, they used this chassis in models that had a phonograph and phono and tone control wiring. Got some basic voltage and resistance charts, so that's cool. And I think this continues on as well with some pertinent info. So it's also for the 628. I think so. Alright, so I figured that will help out with this project. I'm itching to dive into it. Chassis looks like a mess down below, that's why I especially want to get some good service info. I was hoping to get a Sam's with a parts locator, because the way these sets are wired and the parts are just kind of hanging all over, it's a little hard to trace some of it out, but I'll muddle my way through, I'm sure.